Hi, Shalini. Welcome to the Beyond Barriers podcast. We're so thrilled to have you on the show because you are such a rule breaker, pioneer, inspiring leader. So I can't wait for our audience to get to know you and learn from you. So welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. And I do tend to break a lot of rules. You can ask my mom and dad.
That's the only way to be. So let's dive right in. Tell us about your very early formation story of the dreams you had as a little girl, and tell us, give us a peek into that, Shalini.
Yeah, so I grew up in Southern California in San Diego in a very beautiful surf town. So, it was beach tacos and nice people was my entire upbringing. But we traveled a lot, luckily. And we came from, we by no means were wealthy, very middle class, but somehow my parents gave me the incredible gift of travel.
Hmm.
So, every few years we'd either go to India. My mom would actually pull me out of school for 2 months, and I'd spend about 3 months in the wintertime in India. And then in the summers, on alternate years, we would go to visit my grandparents in Kenya. So we'd get that great East Africa experience and, just beautiful like safaris. And outside my grandparents' house, like the giraffe would start walking around at 5 p.m. So
Wow.
wonderful memories, but also the spark of enchantment with global beauty because
Mm.
we were flying Japan Airlines and Singapore Airlines and connecting in these Asian cities, and these women were like walking Barbie dolls to a young girl. I remember being on a flight to India on Singapore Airlines, and I remember I think I was 8, and I got up to ask them for some water, and their curtain was closed in the galley area. And I remember pulling the curtain back, and here were all these gorgeous flight attendants painting their nails, and I was like, oh my god, they're so
Glamorous.
so and I had always just loved beauty. And of course, having very traditional parents, it wasn't really an opportunity to go into it. But I did after my dad sent me to India with a plane ticket and $2,500 at 19 and told me to start my own company.
Wow. Oh my God. So, what was that company? What was
Well,
that first
uh,
business?
well, first off, I cried hysterically on that flight. I was secretly being married off because that was the threat for not behaving and being a very, outspoken young girl is like, if you don't behave, we're going to marry you off or we're going to send you to boarding school.
Yeah.
Um, but when I landed, my uncles were waiting for me and they were knitwear manufacturers. And so the path of least resistance was to create knit and golf sweaters for the surf and golf industry in San Diego. So I worked with, Aaron Chang and a lot of different surf companies and golf companies, and I hated it. Because,
Hmm.
19-year-old telling my uncles, hey, we have a delivery date. And they're like, hey, don't worry, drink some chai. And I'm like, no, we legitimately have a delivery date. I can't go have chai. And so I did out of that. And I did sterling silver and semi-precious stones, got them into Macy's. And, I was fearless. I love to just cold call everybody. But while I was doing that, I was also going to college and getting a degree in international business. And I remember just needing another part-time job. So I went and interviewed at the cosmetics department back. This is going to age me. Back when Bullocks was still around. We didn't have Macy's.
Yeah.
And I got a job at the Clinique counter. And I remember getting my very first customer and not knowing how to do any makeup at all. So I was really nervous. And that was the time where they didn't even have makeup brushes for Clinique. It was like cotton balls and Q-tips and whatnot. And and so I ended up doing her makeup. And the next day I got a beautiful bouquet of flowers and a card that said, thank you so much for bringing back my wife. She's had cancer. You put a smile on her face. And growing up looking different and coming from a different culture, I was exceptionally bullied through school. And so for me, I truly understood very innately the power of self-esteem.
Mm.
And when I got that card and I read it, I'm like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And that was really the beginning of my career in beauty.
Wow, that's an incredibly powerful story, and it really speaks to, discovering that purpose of believing in something bigger than yourself. That the path then just simply unfolds after that. So, fast forward from that point when you had that clarity and you discovered sort of what you wanted to do, it's one thing to know your North Star. It's another to kind of figure out, well, how are you going to get there, right? So what were some of those pivotal decisions or moments that, got you to where you are now?
It's interesting because I don't feel like it was strategically or methodically laid out. I just kind of went with the flow. Like I loved makeup. I loved what I was doing. At that time, there was a lot of new brands launching, like Laura Mercier with Laura, Makeup Forever with Danny Sands, Smashbox with Dean and Davis Factor. So I became a regional makeup artist for pretty much all of Southern California. And I would go and help these brands launch in store. And I loved it so much. And I must have done a makeup application on someone very important because I got a call one day from NBC Studios saying, "Hey, we heard about your stuff. Do you want to come up here and show us?" I didn't really know what my stuff was, but I wasn't at all.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to turn down any opportunity to drive on a big Hollywood lot, especially
Right.
in San Diego. I'm like, wow, this is major. So I drove up 2.5 hours to NBC Studios in Hollywood,
Yeah.
did my version of TV makeup, which now I look back and I'm like, oh my God, how did they hire me? Excuse me. And yeah, and that kind of got me started on the local news at NBC. I was driving 4 days a week, about 5.5 hours round trip.
Wow.
And within about 6 weeks, I remember the head of hair and makeup walking in the makeup room, and he looked at me. He's like, "Pack up your shit, let's go." These like veteran hardened makeup artists are like, "Bye, you're fired." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm fired." I gave it a good run. I had no idea what I was doing. This is so embarrassing. So I'm packing up my stuff and following this guy out of the studio. And then all of a sudden he takes a left turn and walks me right onto the Tonight Show with Jay Leno. And he's like, "You're really good. You're going to work here." And that launched my celebrity makeup artist career. And
Wow.
so, from there, because I was working with so many celebrities, that got me on TV in San Diego to talk about what it was like to work with the likes of Simon Cowell and Alec Baldwin and on some of these great shows. And I remember doing that. I had no idea again what I was doing. And a few weeks in, Tom Bergeron, who's the host of Dancing with the Stars and Funniest Videos, he was hosting Hollywood Squares at the time. And honestly, like one of my most favorite shows I've ever worked on. When Henry Winkler became the executive producer, we'd literally go to work, have spagos for breakfast, work with 15 different celebrities a day, have an on-set masseuse. I'm like, are you really paying me to be here? Because I'm having the time of my life. I was working with like Shaq. I mean, anyone that was a guest on the show, I was doing their makeup. And it was just an environment where all you did was laugh, laugh, laugh. So
Yeah.
Tom had heard that I was doing TV, and he said, "Hey, this is a theme in my career. Let me see your stuff." I'm like, "Okay, I don't know what my stuff is, but here's a copy of one of my segments."
Yeah.
He's like, "Great, I'll call you Tuesday and give you my feedback." And I'm like, "Okay, you won't hurt my feelings." Like, I love feedback. I think feedback is such an important thing to be open to. While it might hurt your feelings, at the same time, it's what's going to make you grow.
Right.
And so I was like, "You're not going to hurt my feelings, just whatever. I know I'm horrible on TV." So Tuesday he called and he said, "The only feedback I have for you is I've scheduled you a meeting with my agent. You got to do this." And I was like, "Okay." So I went driving back up to LA. I remember getting in the elevator with Ellen DeGeneres and I was like, "What am I doing here? This big agency." And I remember her saying, "Oh, you're really cute. Let's get you in a helicopter and you can do traffic." And I said, "Well, one, I'm like deathly afraid of helicopters, so that's never going to work. Two, I want to be a brand." And she's like, "I don't know what that means." And I'm like, "I don't either, but I know I need to get to New York for it to happen." And so everybody rallied. I remember going back to work at Hollywood Squares and telling Henry Winkler and Tom, I'm like, "I need to have a tape so I can get to New York." And Henry was so generous that day. He was like, "Go get into hair and makeup, take our camera crew and go interview every one of these celebrities and you'll have your tape." And that got me booked on the CBS Early Show. And that started me as a beauty expert on television. And then from there, I was really able to very easily carve out my niche and distinct voice.
Wow. Everything you've shared so far really highlights that clarity, that when you have clarity on what you want and why it matters, and then you commit to your craft and just being the best at what you do, but also focusing on serving and making a difference, that the path really does unfold. It's a series of serendipitous things that worked out, but it's almost like it was destined to be.
Yeah, and it's interesting as that the term hindsight is 2020 is so
Hmm.
true because I'm now about 15 to 20 years into my career, and I'm able to look back even at the hardest times and truly understand with gratitude that I wouldn't be so purpose driven at this point in my career had I not gone through some of the trials and
Hmm.
tribulations as an entrepreneur. So it is interesting when you do, even when you commit and you don't know where your path is taking you, it
Hmm.
does work out the way it's supposed to.
Right. What were some of the scariest moments for you that really sort of challenged your sense of self, or perhaps, filled you with uncertainty or doubt?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think growing up as an Indian girl in a traditional household, you are part of your values that you're taught is to not speak up, don't
Mm.
rock the boat,
Yeah.
don't have an opinion, don't make people uncomfortable with your voice.
Hmm.
And then let's layer on just incredible parents with beautiful hearts that are like, trust everyone, you know, the world is beautiful, everything's done on a handshake. So, so that did not serve me. It served me well in life, but it did not serve me well in business.
Hmm.
And so I think some of the scariest and also like the most discouraging times were, one being a solo founder. I
Hmm.
never really went into the co-founder play. And early in my career, and I still get it now, and it's very interesting, especially after Me Too, that some of these guys still want to harass women. But I faced a lot of sexual harassment,
Hmm.
a lot of gender bias. I mean, I even going against my gut was probably my biggest life lesson.
Hmm.
Taking on the wrong partners was another huge lesson. And those were scary times for me because, I was very naive in starting my journey. Everything had fallen into place just beautifully. And, it's coming from a upbringing of trust. And so getting into situations where it was about as opposite of anything I had experienced in my life was scary, hard, sad,
Hmm.
devastating at times. But I think the gift in those experiences is one, learning more about yourself,
Hmm.
to learning how to navigate through those ridiculous narrows in life, right? You'll have all of a sudden a wide path, and that path starts to get so narrow. How do you navigate those narrows? And
Hmm.
who are you when you come out of those? And I think for me, some of the biggest lessons were not everyone has the same value system you do. And I faced it not only from men, from the male perspective of harassment, wanting to party on yachts and fly on jets and calling me in on, weekends for let's go over your numbers. And then next thing I know, they're trying to kiss me or they're showing up in a white bathrobe. It's just
Hmm.
so inappropriate. But then I also faced it from women. And that, I think that to me, being a girl's girl and really being one where my entire mission has been to empower women was the most surprising. And I think the most upsetting part of my journey was that not every woman wants to see another woman succeed.
Hmm.
So I'll take this quote. So one of my advisors is Baroness Verma
Hmm.
from the British Parliament. She's an amazing woman. And I remember her telling me, she's like, I've had to fight against the men and I've had to fight against the women. It's been equally as hard to get to
Yeah.
where I am. And I could really understand that because,
Yeah.
that's sometimes the most unexpected lessons. And hurts come from the ones that you least expect it from. And so for me, I think just learning to navigate all of that was very difficult. I mean, there were times in my journey where I physically thought I was going to break from just, the stress of what I was going through. But looking back, and where we are now with this new brand, there is no way I could have legitimately gone out there and empowered women had I not gone through even
Right.
half of what I've gone through. Because, now I can very much empathize with women who are in certain situations and really wanting to help promote them into the right place in their lives.
Right. Well, it's the ultimate founder's journey, right? It's so much about self-awareness. You know, so many people talk about entrepreneurship like it's the path to financial freedom and it's this and that. And I was like, at the end of the day, the most valuable thing you get out of it is you discover all parts of yourself. And you have an opportunity to elevate the parts of yourself that need to grow but didn't know.
100%. I mean, I think it's the most exciting journey of all, if you think about it,
Yeah.
because the knowledge you have and the relationship you have with yourself is just, I don't know too many people who have not been a founder that have that type of,
Yeah. That's so true.
awareness and understanding. And, it's a 24/7 job, and
Hmm.
you're on like a crazy roller coaster of highs and lows. And it's really fantastic when you can meet like-minded people that understand what you've gone
Right.
through.
Right. I was speaking to another founder on the podcast who's built up a very large business. And one of the things she said was, you realize you're different and you don't fit in anywhere, not with the women, not with the moms, not with, regular families. And embracing that difference, the moment you do that is when you get liberated. And
It is liberation. It is truly like incredible freedom that you feel.
right,
And then you understand you don't have those expectations of like,
right.
why am I not over here? And why am I not over here? I mean, it is truly being a lone wolf at times.
Right. And so, with all of those incredible, hardening experiences, if you will, where you are right now, tell us about the new brand, the big mission, the big vision, and introduce us to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we recently launched a new brand called Ready Set Jet. And, if you know anything about my previous brands like Passport to Beauty and the book I wrote,
Mhm.
Passport to Beauty, and, I've created brands for Paramount Pictures and Turner Classic and I mean, you name it. I'm a brand developer at heart. It's my most favorite thing. But this one's really special. So in late 2017, I received the Mahatma Gandhi Award at the British House of Lords for my work in women empowerment and beauty. So prior to that, I had had a crazy spiritual awakening. I had met a Korean master when I moved to Los Angeles. And a few years after I met him, he had called urgently at 4:30 a.m. to see me in Sedona. And on my way to Sedona, my car was struck by lightning. And because silly me being from San Diego and not seeing that much lightning, I was recording everything on my phone, which was
Oh
plugged
my.
in the car. So it conducted the charge through the left side of my body, which was quite painful, but I believe it served its purpose, because when I did arrive to Sedona, the Korean master looked at me and he said, "That was for you. That was for your brain. These are the next four things I need you to do. And the fifth thing is your homework." And sure enough, I had the craziest weekend. I mean, that's a whole nother podcast, other story. But what it did do is it did make me realize, as number five, what I needed to do was to create a platform for women, because I was just discouraged. Women weren't supporting women. There was a lack of mentorship and resources for me in my journey. And I wanted to make sure no women went through that. So I launched Power Beauty Living. Within a year, the United Nations contacted me to launch it globally at the UN on the floor, and then bring one of my events of powering up your beauty, your business, and your life to 350 country head CEOs and diplomats. And so that put me into a much different place in my career versus just beauty, because we were doing all these amazing activations for women. And that's what got me this award. And so it was an honor to receive it. And then I happened to go to India 3 months later after 9 years. I had not been to India in so long, but it was my last cousin's wedding, and there was no way I was going to miss a good Indian wedding. With all my relatives together after so many years. And so I flew to India, and the day I arrived, there was actually a car waiting for me in Delhi. And next thing I know, I was sitting down with the head of Congress, the Supreme Court, a number
Wow.
of ministers of, social empowerment, justice, education, a lot of guys that were really passionate about seeing women rise in India. And so they asked me, they said, look, we feel you've reached your full potential. Now we want you to help our girls. So I said, okay, thank you very much. Let me think about it. Came back in mid 2018. I got another call from these guys saying, hey, we've got 300 people coming in the House of Commons. We'd like for you to speak for 1 hour on what you're going to do for India. So at that point, I knew they were serious. And I started doing research, and I'm like, okay, if we're going to create impact, then let's create significant impact. Let's not go in there and find a leaf and make it fair trade
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
sustainable. Let's create some impact. And I kept getting the same conversation. Every NGO I called, that, these girls get to the age of 15, either they've never had education, or their education ends. They are either married, become servants, or trafficked. So really, there wasn't a lot of opportunity for these women. Meantime, we saw that Amazon was investing 5 billion specifically in the beauty vertical in India. Nobody had actually gone in there and democratized beauty. And that was very exciting to me, because, it's always weird as a makeup artist by trade to travel and go into countries where we have these beautiful skin tones, but there's no products that celebrates the different
Yeah.
shades, And so I was like, all right, India really needs this, because they've got like 4 main foundations that are that don't match. So I
At
got,
Fair and Lovely.
yeah, exactly. And so I ended up kind of doing my research, and I'm like, let's create a new brand. There's this whole new generation of people that love to Airbnb and Uber the world. They want to transform through travel, and they also want to do good. They're this activist generation. Let's create a brand we can scale, that will help us scale the impact, and, train at least 1 million girls, if not more, the next couple of years. um, and so I pitched that, everybody loved it. And I came home and I got to work, started creating these products. And then we raised our first round late 2019. I'm very proud to say 90% of women came in. And then we were in India. I received the Jewel of India Award actually from Prime Minister Modi's office in 2019, and then had a great meeting with Amazon. And we have just launched the brand during the pandemic. We were in India early in 2020 with the girls in the slums, which I have to say was just incredible to see the thirst in their eyes, that they had an option to be anything they wanted to be. But, especially in beauty, it's such a universal language. And so we're really excited about what the future brings. We've raised money from just an incredible group of investors, and like I said, I'm proud to say we're about 90% female funded. We did a crowdfunding campaign earlier this year, again creating more equal opportunities for women. I wanted more women to be investors. I wanted more women to proudly walk in a room and say, I'm an investor, I'm an equity holder in this brand. Knowing that a lot of women didn't have the risk appetite that men do with the larger check sizes and whatnot, we launched with the new Reg CF, a crowdfunding campaign where any woman anywhere in the world could invest for as little as $100.
Wow.
Be an owner in Ready Set Jet. And we were so successful in bringing so many girls overseas in between the ages of 18 and 24. And then in the US, just getting women across the entire country that made their first investment. And we're so proud of it, flipped and became ambassadors for the brand. And it's just been a really exciting journey. Now we're getting ready to launch the online academy, where women anywhere in the world will have the opportunity to learn personal and professional skills to live their most powerful and beautiful life. And we have a big impactful learning pledge, where anytime a course or a membership is purchased, we will sponsor a woman anywhere in the world that can't afford to come in for free.
That is so incredible and so inspiring that you're doing that. But what I also love is that you've really built this like an ecosystem that empowers and gives back and really feeds it back into the system, from your investor choices to giving back and who you're primarily serving. So let me ask you a specific question around fundraising, for example. You and I have talked before about just the challenges for female founders in terms of raising funds or getting access to capital. It's not easy being a female founder to begin with. We're the underdogs, but it's even harder when you're trying to scale and get access to capital. What advice would you give to someone who's aspiring to build? How, how to think about it, do's and don'ts, if you will, from your own experience.
Yeah, right now it's an incredibly exciting time to be an entrepreneur. There's more resources out there than ever with, how to fundraise, cohorts you can join, different accelerators, different incubators. Like none of that really existed when I launched my first brand, and I wish I had that because maybe things would have been a lot easier for me. But I think there's so many opportunities to raise money without being the traditional, I got to go get venture, I've got to do it this
Mhm.
way. Now with the new Reg C, with the SEC, you can raise upwards of $5 million on crowdfunding, which is exciting because it's also a really fantastic way to build community.
Mm.
And, we were super unconventional with our first raise. We didn't go out knocking on all the VC doors. What we did is we threw a party at a crystal store on Hollywood Boulevard and invited a lot of women that we knew were either parts of angel networks or had friends that were, and we asked them to bring their friends, and we raised about 170,000 that way, alongside the Seed Lab, who just great guys that believe in, the mission of this company. Um, so because of the, Y Combinator making it so easy with like even a safe note, you don't need to go into a very complicated raise.
Mm.
What you do need to do is follow your gut. So as much as you are being interviewed by these different investors, you should also do your due diligence on them.
Mm-hmm.
And because, once you raise money, you're literally getting married to these people.
Right.
So dating is okay, spend a little time. I mean, some of these investors that invested in my company, some of them invested after 15 minutes of meeting me, and that's incredible. Some of them wanted to have 3, 4, 5 calls. That's fine too. It gives you an opportunity to really get to know the person. And, we've turned down a couple $1 million in funding because they were just the wrong fit. So this has been a very intentional,
Mm-hmm.
um, thoughtful build of this entire brand, from the products to the investors we brought on to the communities we're building. But I do mentor a lot of girls where they'll come in and they'll be like, okay, I got an investor, but they want 51% of the company. And I'm like, okay, well, your governance issues are, those are just as important as how much equity you own.
Yeah.
Well, I'm under an employment agreement. And I'm like, yeah, but they can fire you. Like, you've got
Yeah.
to look at the different controls that are
Yeah.
within contracts. So it can be a lot, but like I said, there's never been a better time to just access resources. There's Hello Alice, which is great for women, to learn about funding. There's grants out there. There's so many different opportunities to get money right now without going that traditional
Mm-hmm.
route, that's been done in the past.
Yeah. What it sounds like is really, figure out what's really important, and there are more avenues than not, but also asking for help, instead of trying to figure it all out alone. And when you think about the ways that you have solved challenges, as encountered different levels of the business and things that you were creating, what were some of the strategies that you used to get access to people that could make a huge difference, but you didn't know them or didn't know how to approach them?
Yeah, I mean, if 2020 taught me anything, Twitter has been phenomenal. I have literally done some of the best networking ever
Yeah.
with managers, with investors, with people that have knowledge that I don't, and literally just reached out to them on direct message saying, hey, can I have a few minutes of your time? Or somebody might say, hey, I've got office hours open for founders on Fridays, and jumping on board. And so not only are you gaining a lot of resources and education around, some of the questions you might have, but now you're also starting to build your network and relationships. And I remember I met one gentleman, and I was like, yeah, I'm doing this cross-border play, and there's a lot of difficulty in some of the regulations around it, the hesitancy of US venture funds investing in a out of country play, all of these things. And he literally went on Twitter and Facebook and was like, hey, this girl's doing this big play in India. And because of that, we got retail partnerships. We got we met a bunch of more people that we would never have known. So Twitter's been fantastic. We created one of our strongest strategic partnerships from Clubhouse.
Wow.
So, jumping into Clubhouse and just not being afraid to raise your hand. I mean, it's scary and intimidating for so many of us to get
Mm,
up there and speak, but really forcing yourself to get out of your comfort zone and getting up on those, stages and speaking brought us about $70,000 in funding um, from key badass women, and really helped us with our entry plans into a country halfway across the world while we're sitting here in Los Angeles. So,
wow.
Twitter is fantastic. Clubhouse is fantastic. And just like even attending like the startup grinds, like I just spoke at Startup Grind New Delhi for Women's Month. And I had so
Mhm.
many people that were in the audience actually reach out to me for advice. And we've been able to, kind of get in and really mentor some of these younger entrepreneurs, which is really exciting. So, as much as you're gaining advice, it's also nice to pay it forward and make it a mutual, for everybody.
Right. So, Shalini, you're juggling so many different things. You have very big dreams and you've achieved a lot and you're on your path to achieving even more. What helps you stay centered, on a daily basis? Like, what's your sort of daily habit that is a non negotiable?
Well, nature for one. I have to get out in nature, and nature is so grounding, and it allows you to really clear your mind. So that's one. The second one is really learning how to manage your self-talk and your thoughts.
Mm.
You can make or break yourself just on your thoughts. So I can very easily tell myself the biggest sob story and go down that rabbit hole. And by the way, everything starts to go wrong.
Mm.
Right. So I really am very mindful in catching negative chatter and also
Mm.
like not being available to it as well. Like if you've got like negative people in your life, like just turning that off,
Mm.
especially on days you've got an important call or a pitch, like not even like being available to that because that can affect your energy. And at the end of the day, what you do learn is that you are really the master of your domain and you control your energy.
Hmm.
And so, learning the art of detachment is another one. Like instead of getting so emotionally attached to, for instance, how the packaging is going to come out. It's not, earlier in my earlier brands, it was very like, oh my God, this is my baby. And now it's like, nope, this is for the world. And
Yeah.
learning to take more of an observational approach to things
Mm.
versus being emotionally in. Like if I start to feel like I'm getting emotional about something, I will literally mindfully step out and be like, observe, just like it's another red car going down the street. Observe this just as you would observe that. And that immediately takes the emotion out, and you're able to make more rational, practical
Mhm.
decisions.
Now, when you look 10 years out and you think about what skill or competency you need to personally develop now, to be embark on that next stage, what is that?
I think we're always all learning. I'm happy to be at an age in my life and an experience level where I understand what I do really, really well. And I also understand what I don't do. So
Mm-hmm.
for me at this point in my career, it's really about surrounding myself with best in class people in areas that I don't understand. I think earlier on, you want to do everything, especially as a founder.
Mm-hmm.
You've got this like, this is my baby, I want to control it. But as I've journeyed through my career, what I realized is that's not the best use of my time. And really just continuing to surround myself with best in class. And as I look through my career, it's something that I'm going to lean on more and more as I grow my brands.
Mm.
And really just honoring myself, like this is what I do really well, and I'm going to kind of stay in my lane, and I'm going to bring the people that do those, different verticals or whatever really well, and we're going to have fun while we do it. So I think that's really important.
That's great. Okay, final question is if you had a billboard with your biggest message to women around the world, what would it say?
Trust your gut.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Powerful indeed.
It never lies. It never lies. And it can lead you to greatness, and it can also lead you to absolute sadness if you go against it. I mean, I think time and time again, the times I've gone against my gut when I've known, um, have been probably the most painful with the biggest losses.
Mm.
And so, you have that gut instinct for a reason, and just make it your friend, and don't paint red flags white. Like if you see a red flag, it's there for a reason. Don't
Yeah.
be like, oh, it's okay. It'll work itself out. It'll get better. It's usually like, no, it won't. It'll be in your face and really, distract and destroy. So trust your gut.
Thank you. That is phenomenal. So thank you for being on the show. We're huge fans of everything you're doing, the mission you're on, and everything you're building. We'll be rooting for you. Thank you for being on the show, Shalini.
Thank you, and appreciate your support, and always happy to have more women in our Ready Set Jet family. So thank you so much.